Well, Katie, welcome to the Sakara Life podcast. We are so honored to have you here today. And the first question we like to ask at the beginning of every episode is, what is your mission here on earth? What are you here to do?
Oh, to do my best that everyone in the world realize that the cause of all suffering is what we're thinking and believing, and that there is a way to deal with that. That it's, I could use the term, it's magical, the shifts that take place, but it's not magical. It's something so simple that anyone can do if they have an open mind. And that is to identify the thoughts that are causing their stress, confusion, tears, suffering, and how to identify the thoughts they're thinking and to move them from their head to paper. So there are those thoughts stopped. And then we can question them. I had experience to understand the cause of my suffering and how to end it. And it was so radical that, and so easy to pass on. It was so radical, people wanted to understand. So that's what I refer to as the work.
So how did you get to this work and this mission? How did it find you, or you find it?
Well, I was sleeping on the floor, and because of my self-esteem and self-loathing was running, it was just running so deep in me. So I didn't even believe I deserved a bed to sleep in. So I was sleeping on the floor. This particular morning, I woke up as a cockroach was crawling over my left foot, as I recall, one of my feet. And as I recall it, talking to you, my left foot. And I woke up, and before this ego, this self-identification, before it could identify, I saw the cause of my suffering. And I saw that prior to that thought, there was no suffering. So I began to laugh. It was like the first sound out of that, what for me is the enlightened mind. I was enlightened to the cause of all suffering, the cause of life, actually, as we understand it to be.
Would you say you still suffer at all?
To answer your question, no. And then physical pain is, I find that this may sound very odd, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but I'm fascinated by it. I can see that even pain, all pain, is either remembered or anticipated. And I love that so much. And the more we do self-inquiry, the more we come to realize that for ourselves, because it's not something we can teach. And so the pain becomes, something I'm fascinated with, as opposed to being frightened of it or having to experience fear. It's the opposite of fear.
It really starts with that almost separation from the thought, right? Instead of being, this is me, I'm this thought, I'm this memory, I'm this feeling. It's you're stopping it by writing it down and putting it on a piece of paper. That's your first step, right?
Yes, I move it from my head to paper.
And so that way you can see it.
I can question So the ego doesn't say, well, I don't really mean that. Well, no, that's not really the right thought. Well, I think I understated that. No, none of that. You just move it from head to paper, trust it, question it, turn it around, and find examples for those turnarounds and have a good life.
You have your own podcast where you work with different people and kind of do the work. I'm really fascinated also with the ones that you do around self-image. And you've talked about even how you experienced your own, if I'm remembering correctly, even you experienced your own weight loss.
I was like 200 pounds and the work found me, and suffering quit me. And I came to understand, how to react when I believe these thoughts that create this terrible me, in my opinion. I question those, and I noticed the cause for compulsive overeating or alcohol or drugs or anger or sadness began to quit me. So that's my diet, self-inquiry, and then the absence of suffering, sanity.
Like, how would we do the work for someone who's battling with issues around self-image? So that's a lot of, I think in the world of Sakara and how Whitney and I were brought to our work here with food as medicine, is working through our own kind of distorted image of ourselves, and how we were wrapped up in, what we thought we had to look like, and the pain of that, and what we thought we had to do in order to look like that, in order to be valued and worthy enough in the world. So our community tends to be people who have suffered some version of that and are looking for a transformation.
Let's take a look at it. They don't care about me. Does that work for you? They don't care about me. And how do I react when I believe the thought, I think I'm too fat, too thin. I think my clothes don't live up. I wore the wrong thing to this event. People think, I'm
not good enough.
I'm not good enough. Oh, the list is so long. So I would identify, there's something wrong with me. And then anchor in the situation. Let's say it's some kind of reception that's really important. It's a wedding or an anniversary, whatever. And people are really looking good there, all but me, I think. And I've done my best. So there's something wrong with me. They think something's wrong with me. So I move that from my head to paper. So it's anchored on paper. There's something wrong with me in that situation, in that event. There's something wrong with me. Is it true? Or you might say, I'm too fat. Or, maybe it's not, there's something wrong with me, but you can just move your own thought of low self-esteem there.
Yeah. What if I believe that it is true that I'm too fat?
So, okay, so we'll go with I'm too fat. Okay, so I'm going to anchor. I'm going to be there now in that situation, even though it happened last week. It's still bothering me. It still hurts. So I'm going to anchor in that situation. There's something wrong. I'm too fat. Is it true? I'm going to get really still. I'm going to be there now. And so what's going through me is I'm too fat for what? To have a good time? Too fat to come as the identity I want them to see me as. Okay, yuck. That could be a problem. Let's see, I'm too fat. I'm too fat. Is it true? So you see how just the question, is it true? What am I doing there? Am I there to give the gift of of presents that I've been invited to by the couple getting married, or, or the reception. It's about that person. So what am I? No, I'm too fat. Is it true? So I look around the room in my mind's eye, because that wedding, let's say, was last week. So I'm still anchored there. There's something wrong with me. I'm too fat. Is it true? I look around at the people in my mind's eye, and gosh, I see people that weigh more than I do. Or it could be maybe I don't. I only see the beautiful people there, those beautiful people. And then I compare. This is the ego's favorite food. I compare. They're all looking good, and I'm too fat. There's something wrong with me. Okay, and then I notice in the event, and from then to now, how do I react when I believe the thought I'm too fat? There's something wrong with me. I compulsively overeat. If alcohol's the fix, I compulsively overeat and drink. If wherever addiction wherever the ego has control, it will be that for you. So there's something wrong with me. I'm too fat. Okay, who would I be without the thought? At that wedding, at that event that happened last week, who would I be without the thought I'm too fat? Now, it doesn't mean I'm not too fat to my own mind. It doesn't mean that people really believe that about me. In other words, I'm not arguing. I think I'm too fat. And when I looked at, is it true? Yes. I looked at my, what is it? The thing we look at to see, like the
BMI.
Yes, EMI, and there, yeah, I'm too fat for my height and age. I'm too fat. Okay, so I'm too fat. Is it true? Yes. How do I react when I believe the thought? I just love giving her a moment for everyone sitting in on it, on this, and with the three of us. How do I react when I believe the thought I'm too fat? I don't accept invitations. I'm really careful, but I don't even like being with my family. They are, not even comfortable. I see how they look at me. You see how I'm just sitting in that event in my mind's eye now, a week later, and now even, how do I react when I believe the thought? The way even my family treat me and see me comes up, and I notice, and then I go back to the wedding. Okay, how do I react when I believe the thought? I have to hold in my stomach, stand up straight. I have to laugh a little too loud. I have to be maybe overly friendly, overly funny, we can all sit in this. How do I react when I think the thought I'm too fat? You see, eating disorders are thinking disorders.
And so how do you get out of that?
So now, who would I be without the thought in that situation? And this isn't about pretend it's not true at all. This is about who would I be without the thought? So I'm going to experience myself there without the thought I'm too fat. Okay, so comfortable, in touch with their wedding, with the birthday toasts, cordial. I'm more interesting because I'm comfortable. I can go to the buffet table where the cake is, the food is. I can do all of that comfortably, having a good time.
Not worrying about myself.
I notice, who would I be without the thought, I'm too fat? Comfortable, having a life that doesn't depend on this and my idea, whatever it is, of a beautiful body. Also, who am I without the thought, there's something wrong with me, I'm too fat? Maybe a friend to other people I see isolating. I don't know. Free. That's what I know. Comfortable in my own skin. Now, the other way, I come home, I binge, and then there's self-hatred. And in my world, for me, understanding what I did from the floor, it's okay with me. In life, we start over. I do my work on what I was thinking and believing at that event last week. I question it and start over. That's what we do in life. That's what's going on all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. This moment. So what I'm thinking and believing is the cause of any addiction, anger, low self-esteem. It's the cause of all. Again, when we're sleeping at night and we're not dreaming, do we exist? No, not until the ego wakes up. Identity is a term for ego, not until the ego wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in an eating disorder, a thinking disorder. I am too fat. I hate myself. Who wants to get out of bed like that? Who can? Those of you, spending time with us here, it's the cause of our suffering. War is against our true nature. So we can move from our head to paper. The war with the self, the war with the world, the war with the body, and move it from our head to paper and question it. And so we realize for ourselves the cause of suffering. Believing is the cause of our identity, because that's the very cause of our eating disorders, thinking disorders, all the isms.
Is freedom dissolving the ego, or is freedom using the ego to tell ourselves the stories that allow more freedom? Does that make sense?
It does in its way. And what really came to me is, who cares if we're free? We know the difference between what hurts and what doesn't.
Right. So we use our thoughts to create a less painful suffering.
But we don't use them.
Beliefs.
They happen. We can't stop them. But self-inquiry allows us to understand what's true and what isn't, and that shifts our brain. It shifts, our bodies shift, and that life becomes manageable, meaning, another way of saying it is, life becomes really comfortable. It becomes a gift, and life is beautiful without exception. That's an egoic, that's the absence of suffering, the absence of ego. And when we talk about the ego, that ego we've been pointing to here regarding eating disorders or alcoholism, drug addiction, that's all of that. It's all about shutting up our heads. Just a way out of hell, just for 1 minute, 5 minutes, please. And that's when we're acting out in our addiction. And the ego, boy, it does belong on paper.
One of your quotes is, when you think and correct me if I butcher it, but it's something like when you think life can't get any better, it must. Like that's the law.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Or what does that mean? And what law is that?
Anytime I think that life can't get any better, the law is. It has to. And that's life out of the questioned mind.
How does that work? Yeah.
Okay, so let's say at that at that reception last week, at that wedding or whatever it was, on what I was thinking and believing, and move it from my head to paper, and question it. Life gets better. My life at that event the week before gets better. Even that gets better when I think of it. And compassion, self-compassion for the innocence that I was, for example, a week ago, what I was thinking and believing. This work is mercy. It is forgiveness. It is understanding. And it's a way to love the one we're with. And the one I'm with is myself. I wake up with me. I go to sleep with me. I spend the day with me. In other words, that me that I am believing, thinking and believing myself to be.
To me, it almost feels like we're rewriting the past in order to have a better future. That it's, almost like there are different people who practice visualization and they practice what they're going to be in the future. And so that when that shows up, you already know how you're going to be because you practiced it in your mind.
Well,
and this to me almost feels like that, where we're taking a time that was not great and reworking it. And not only do I then feel peace in that memory, like we've rewritten the history for ourselves, but then I also am teaching my mind how to think for the future so that I can be happier in the future in that next, when that comes up again.
I love the self-inquiry example we just did with, thoughts about myself, but you also talk about self-inquiry because, you talk about the minute I judge you, I become what I've judged you for. And so the self-inquiry is not just on kind of your thoughts about yourself, but it's your thoughts about the world around you as well.
It's an interesting thing, Danielle. If you only did the work on one person in your life, we can play with this. Like if you did the work on only one person in your life, it shifts the way you see the rest of the world, the other human beings in the world. Because you're coming out of a wiser, more open, sane mind.
So is every thought I have an opportunity to see the world differently, I guess? It's a rhetorical question, I guess. Like that's one of my takeaways, I guess, is like every thought I have is an opportunity.
Well, if you don't love what you're thinking or love your world, that's the people, that's what self-inquiry is about. And I think that it's healthy for every human being to understand the cause of all suffering and how to end it. Because sooner or later, in this earth school, as I see it, lesson after lesson comes to all of us, whatever we need, whatever we need to understand that there's no downside to this world will be given. And self-inquiry is a way of meeting that lovingly, mindfully, caringly, humanely, gently.
Mm.
And we just have a few more minutes left, but I'd love to touch on forgiveness before we end.
Forgiveness for me is seeing that what I thought happened didn't. And that doesn't mean that, let's say, that person I'm not forgiving. That doesn't mean that person didn't do what they did or say what they said. But, what am I thinking and believing about that human being? So what I thought happened didn't, meaning the old way that I saw the world no longer matches the way I see the world. And the world is as we believe it to be. It can never be more or less, as other than an occasional epiphany or for so many of us, self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is it's the key to our heart, and the heart is a symbol for kind mind.
And do you have a method for repair?
I love you brought that up. It's like, how do I react when I think the thought, he hurt my feelings? He tries to apologize, and I just don't accept it. So, I've done my worksheet on him now. It's how do I react when I believe the thought? I punished him. I stopped calling him. I told my friends about him. I ruined his reputation, etc. So I did that in my worksheet, turned the thought around and tried that on, explored it. In other words, I worked it. And then I go back and I said, when I said what I said to you, I'm so sorry for that. I'm so sorry for that. And how can I make it right? But I'd never say that if I didn't mean it. And it doesn't mean that what they say would make it right, that I'm able to give and I'm honest about it. But how can I make it right? Okay. And then between the two of us, we would look at it more closely, work through it. And for example, if I'd go back to the people where I said what I said about him to them, go back and clear that up. It's very humbling, and the work is for questions and turnarounds, and I refer to what we're talking about now as living turnaround. Self-realization until it's lived has no power. We just walk around like, oh, I'm so smart and I really understand the world. To be in the world, not above or below it, but just right there in the middle and loving what is.
I love that it feels as though I'm like, when I'm listening to you, that forgiveness is so easy when you've changed your mind. It's
when we wake up to what we were thinking and believing wasn't as accurate as we wanted it to be. Like, he hurt my feelings. I want that to be because the way I treated him, I'm right. So let me write a worksheet on that guy or that person. And wow, how do I react when I believe the thought? I may owe amends to some buddies out there.
So then it's like, is it in a way, you have like selective beliefs? Like, you can choose to believe the things that make you feel good and choose to turn around the things that make you feel bad.
I can pretend to believe the things, some things, but that's not believing. And I can pretend I don't believe things, but that's not believing. Authenticity, that's it, real deal. That's a fearless state of mind and life. It is living life in the world, not afraid of sickness, not afraid of excellent health, not afraid to be beautiful, not afraid to be overweight.
Do you worksheet your own thoughts anymore?
Oh, sure. You cannot sit in self-inquiry with someone as a facilitator, sit with a person and not come out more enlightened. So to support other people is self-support.
So we end every episode asking for light work, and light work to us is work that helps people shine their light. So, typically something people can kind of like put into action, which there's a lot of things to put into action from this conversation with you, but what would be one thing that you would say to our listeners for their light work after this episode?
Yeah, to get a pencil or pen and paper, write down your stressful thoughts and open your mind and just take a couple of deep breaths and question the thoughts on the paper that you've written and have a good life.
Well, thank you so much, Byron Katie. We appreciate you being here today and for all of the work that you've done over the years and continue to do.
Oh, thank you, Whitney. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle.